Welcome back to MTG Stories. This time we follow the adventures of Florian, Voldaren Scion, a vampire noble, as he meets with some of the most powerful vampire families to inform them of the dangers to come. War was brewing. Atop a hellish mountain peak, surrounded by fire, set in enormous manor that for the time being was the meeting place for two very powerful vampire families. Inside the grand hall of the manor, sitting or hovering around a large table, was a brood of vampires, which was a sight to behold, to say the least. Being as though vampires usually traveled alone or in pairs, a meeting like this was monumental, to be sure. There was Drana, the last blood chief, the last living blood chief, who was also the blood chief of the wealthiest and most powerful of the vampire families. She was accompanied by the Callous Blood Mage, a vampire warlock, and she was accompanied by the Null Priest of Oblivion, another vampire cleric with some interesting abilities. The host of this gathering was none other than Florian Voldaren Scion, a vampire noble of the Voldaren bloodline. He was a vampire with very ambitious visions. He was accompanied by the bloodthirsty adversary, as well as the vampire socialite, another vampire noble with also had some interesting abilities. The meeting began at once, even before all the guests had arrived. If it isn't Drana, the last blood chief, welcome. Glad you could make it. I do apologize for the fire. I hope your trip up the mountainside wasn't too perilous. Hello, Florian. The trip up the mountain wasn't perilous at all, minus a few deaths. Nothing me and the Null Priest couldn't handle. I guess you've been doing well. You still have your pets, I see. Pets? Why, no. These are just my loyal citizens of the township. Anyway, you look thirsty, Drana. Florian ordered the townsfolk to bring refreshments to the guests. They rushed out of the grand hall and returned at once with goblets filled to the brim with blood. Most of the servants looked pale, as if their own blood was just drained. After they served the guests, they left the grand hall immediately. Very charming, Florian. Is that why you brought me here? To show me how obedient your pets are? Or let me guess, you're still trying to impress Olivia, huh? I should have known. All jest aside, I'm sure you know exactly why I brought you here, Drana. You've heard the rumors as well as me. The conflict between the werewolves seems to be never-ending, but there has been other problems as of late. Right as always, the werewolves are a problem, but something else is brewing. I've heard the rumors. That's why I've contacted him. He should be here any moment. Zagreus, thief of heartbeats. I was hoping you brought him with you. I'm sure he has learned plenty on his travels. Yes, he has. But do you really believe a dwarf is capable of such things? The noble vampire hesitated to answer as one of the townsfolk ran into the grand hall clinging to life. Before he could utter a single word, he collapsed onto the floor. He was touched by death. It looks like our final guest has arrived, and just in time. I have questions, Zagreus. Entering into the room, as Florian looked toward the door, Zagreus, thief of heartbeats, entered the grand hall, surrounded by a black aura of death.
Hello, Drana. Florian. I'm sorry about your pet. I warned him not to touch me. Now, to answer your questions, to my knowledge, the dwarf is very capable, and she also has some very powerful allies. I'm not yet sure what her end goal is, but there is another matter at hand that is potentially even more dangerous. This business with the wizard and the lich.
Yes, I was hoping it wasn't true. The long night. I wouldn't be immediately opposed to something that ridiculous, but that would give an infinite advantage to our enemies, the werewolves, and we cannot allow that. Yes, the long night. That would put us at an immediate disadvantage. Those zombies are a problem, even for someone with my abilities. But even more peculiar, it's the talk of dragons. They both seem to be gathering dragons. I've even heard of another party of dwarves and wizards that was working with a dragon knight. Yes, I heard the same. That's exactly why I was hoping Zagreus had some good news about Innistrad. Wondering how the noble vampire knew of his travels, Zagreus stood there confused, before telling them all he saw on Innistrad.
It was hell. But after all that death, I made haste back to Drana. That's when I saw it. The Innistrad predator. The vampire dragon. It was definitely there.
It was there, you say? Wonderful. And what if you're running with Zariel? Now, even more confused, Zagreus wondered how the vampire noble could possibly know of his running with Zariel, Archduke of Avernus, a planeswalker. She was originally an angel of the seven heavens before transforming into an archdevil and falling to the nine hells.
I did find her. She is still dedicated to winning the undying blood war between devils and demons, but for a small price, she said she just might help us.
The price to pay to an archdevil is never small, Zagreus. Nevertheless, we need that dragon and her help. We shall meet her price. It won't be the first time I've played with fire. No objections here. We definitely need that dragon, and if we are to survive, the Archduke should serve our purpose well. Or we shall serve hers. Great. Then we shall set out at once to find this dragon and this planeswalker. This should be interesting. Let's go. This brood of vampires set out to find the Innistrad predator and Zariel, Archduke of Avernus, to broker a deal of sacrifice. Will this deal turn out to be too much of a price to pay for these powerful, wealthy vampire families? We shall have to wait and see. Thanks for tuning in.